Welcome to the Finding Magic podcast, where we explore themes of magic, of creativity, and of structured intuition, which is using our intuition to lead us through our lives. And these themes are raised in my book, Getting into the Flow. And so the podcast aims to deepen our understanding and expand it. But it's not just all about me. We can also learn from my fantastic, amazing, and wonderful guests who share their stories of magic and so help us shift our view of reality away from it being seemingly random, which was what we were brought up to believe, and into seeing how the magic is woven in, to sensing it, and ultimately to creating it. Now, when we do that, we can start to live our lives from our highest potential. We can become all we can be. And we can live lives that are powerful and on purpose from a place of joy and inspiration. Hi, I'm Vincent, your host. Let's get into it. Welcome to this episode, I.2, the second of my interviews. And today I'm interviewing Martin Worth and inviting him to share a story of magic showing up in his life. Now, Martin is a heart-based intuitive healing practitioner, and he mostly uses dreamtime healing, mixed modalities. And dreamtime healing acknowledges that we're spiritual beings living in an earthly reality and using wisdom from the Earth's indigenous peoples who work in harmony with the Earth and all life and acknowledge spirit within all living things. And through this understanding, Martin can help heal the body, mind, and spirit. So, Martin, over to you. Tell me about your story, starting with the background.
Yeah, cheers, Vincent. It's good to be here. Yeah, magic. Yeah, something that I used to find happening throughout my life, but wasn't until I started to really study into what magic was through the intuitive training that we've done, that I really realized that we are truly creators and that we can actually mold energy, use energy to create magic within our lives. And that's the way I like to define magic, as being the ability to channel energy to produce an end result. And I guess, I tried to think of specific stories to talk about today. And there's a few. There are kind of like so many. And I guess, when I first started in this work, it was like, oh, goody, that happened. Oh, this happened, that happened. And I think what happens is you get a little bit used to it. And I don't mean that in a negative sense. I mean, magic does happen all the time when you're open to it. You reminded me the other day of a particular instance, which I will relate as one story of magic, where I had to get in touch with the ranger out at one of the national parks as an outdoor recreation instructor, which I just recently stopped doing a couple of years ago. I used to take groups out to a remote location in Queensland, central Queensland, and I needed to get permission from the ranger as to where I could camp, because I didn't want to camp in the regular campsites. This place has only 2 regular campsites. They tend to fill up with people. And, going out there specifically to do intuitive work, a bit of shamanic work, play some didge, cast a circle, etc. And I really didn't want to be sitting in a campsite with a load of people playing Guns N' Roses or something, So I had to really speak to the ranger to get permission to camp other than in the designated camping grounds. And there was a complication because I used to be friends with this guy, and we didn't have a falling out, but we lost contact with each other about 20 years ago. He went home to South Australia, and since he'd been back, it had been kind of really hard to get in contact with him. He's a little bit of a recluse. You've got to be when you're a person who works alone for 10 days at a remote ranger station, goes home for 4 days and comes back and does another 10 days solo. So I guess he's pretty used to his own company. And as I say, I didn't have a falling out with him, but I had a funny feeling that it was kind of hard to get back in touch with him. So not only did I have to speak to the ranger, which would, in ordinary circumstances, be okay, but I also had to talk to a ranger that I had been really, really good friends with. You know, we'd heard the bells at midnight together, kind of friendship. You know, we were really close for a while, and we drifted apart. So I had two things. One, talk to the ranger. Two, he's an old friend of mine that I haven't reunited with. So I was filled with a little bit of trepidation on that because I wasn't quite sure how it was going to go. But, you know, we did what we call a circle on that. And you were part of that process. And we stepped into the energy of the end result that I wanted to create for that meeting. And that was that there was two particular campsites that I was interested in. And so after stepping into the end result, deciding what it was that I wanted as the outcome, which was to have a remote site to use with the permission of the ranger, I then picked up the phone with that in mind and made the call. And this guy was so pleased to hear from me that it was absolutely marvelous. And, you know, okay, so far coincidental, right? But what happened was I had a particular campsite in mind that I'd visualized because I'd been out there a couple of months previously on kind of like a reconnaissance trip, under the radar kind of thing, you know. And I'd found this campsite and I thought, this is the perfect spot. And so my ranger friend, when I rang him up, was really pleased to hear from me. I told him what I wanted. He says, yeah, mental health's really important. That's what he calls the stuff that I do, mental health, and that's fair enough. He says, the best spot to do this would be la la la. And guess what? That was exactly the campsite that I had in mind when I did the visioning for my end result. So it just shows you how powerful it is. He then invited me out, and I spent 2 days out there with him, roaming around, looking at different sites, and yeah, it was brilliant. I can't say that we've rekindled our friendship that much, but we are now in touch, and we do talk, and it's lovely to be back in touch with him. So there's one story.
Yeah. So well, when you put down the phone to him that time, how were you feeling at that point?
Really great. You know, because I'd sort of hit all the buttons. You know, I really did want to reconnect with this friend.
Yeah.
And I really did want to get a remote campsite, not in the normal, you know, designated camping areas. And if you know anything about national parks, they're all about designated camping areas.
Yeah.
But in this case, him being the head ranger in that area,
yeah,
he had the authority to say, no, you can use this spot. That's okay. Right. It's off the road. No one's going to know you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure you tidy up after yourself, you know.
Yeah.
It was a great feeling. A feeling of I was going to say completion. And I think the reason completion comes to mind is because that magic, that energy of the end result had been achieved. And so it was a moment of completion. It was very satisfying. And led to several really excellent trips out to that spot. Yeah. So fun.
That's worth knowing. That it led to several trips. I'm going to make a note of that.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. So when magic happens, there's always this kind of ongoing consequences and more things that happen, spin-offs that happen as a result of that. Yeah,
definitely.
often. Yeah. So would you say there are any lessons that you learned from this incident?
Yeah, probably to get ego out of the way. I really was just chunking a lot of assumptions and beliefs in there that were, in some ways, when I lost contact with this friend of mine, and I say we're close, we were, because I used to go out to this spot when he was the ranger on site, and I'd spend a week, 10 days there with him on shift, and we'd go and build tracks. We'd go and do the ranger thing. I did it as a volunteer, and yeah, so yeah, we spent a lot of time together. Sorry, I got off track there. Bring me back on track.
What was the question? We were talking about lessons you might have learned.
Oh, yes. So the fact that I had lost contact with him, in the back of my head, I was kind of wondering, gee, did I do something? Did I offend him? Was I not a good enough friend? Was I not there when he might have needed me? Because he did go through some difficult times around the time that he went back to South Australia. And so I was doubting myself and thinking that I may have been somehow an instrument in the demise of that relationship. But as it appears, if I was, it was long ago, water under the bridge. And so, yeah, I think the important thing is when you're wanting to create magic, what you put into the spell, I'll call it a spell, that seems to be an apt word, what you put into your intent, the spell that you create with your magic, what you put in with your ego, which includes your motivation for doing it. It includes your own assumptions and beliefs. It includes, reservations that you might have. If you put those in when you mix up the pot of magic, well, you're going to have those laced through the outcome.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, that was a reasonably early intended magic for me. And what I have learned as a result of that is that when I do want to create an intent and I do want to create magic around something, that I need to be very clear in allowing, I would call spirit, people call the universe, interconnectedness of all things, superconscious, insert word here, that it's so important to be coming from the vision, from superconscious, and not from your own assumptions and beliefs around it, because you'll build limitations in. We don't know sometimes how the end result is going to be created. But I do know that if I set the intent for that end result with pure intent and energy of what I want to create, then I always create what I want.
Yeah. I think I'd add to that the importance of stilling the mind and coming into a place of emptiness and where the mind is very quieted, so that all those beliefs and assumptions that are usually there during the waking day are all kind of turned right down. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the outcome of your intent is going to be proportional to how well you've mastered those abilities, I guess.
Great.
And they're not hard to master.
No.
There are techniques that you and I have spoken about over the last maybe 3 years now that we've known each other, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And kept in touch. The techniques are very, very simple. And I'm sure that you're part of what you're doing is going to show people how to access those techniques in themselves. And no one listening to this podcast should say, no, that's not for me.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, we are always creating. What what is in front of you in your life, you've created it. But most of the time we create from our sense of limitation. We create unconsciously without thinking about what we're going to create, just by through our actions, our thoughts, the things that we say and how we say it. We're always creating. And if your life right now is the sum result of what you have put into it, the energy that you've put into it. There's an old Scottish saying, hey, all that's been has led us hither, and all that's here will lead us on. And it's so true. All that's been has led us hither. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Martin. Thank you very much for that. If people want to stay in contact with you and see what you're doing, perhaps get a healing session, perhaps if they're in Queensland, joining one of your occasional men's groups, the men's groups events that you run, how can they stay in contact with you?
They can contact me through my website, martinworth.com. It's pretty easy to remember. Also, I'm on YouTube, Martin Worth on YouTube. You'll notice me with a red headband, which I have on my YouTube photo. And you'll also find my podcast as well. It's called The Mystic Fool. And it's called The Mystic Fool because you don't know what you don't know. And the podcast is full of nice little spiritual tidbits and interesting things that you can inspire your thinking. So, yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I'll certainly vouch for your podcast, and everything that Martin has said about his links, and everything like that. If you go to my website, vincentgmailing.com, you will see at the top a podcast button, and it'll take you to links where you can access the full list of podcasts. And for this interview, it includes a link to all the resources that Martin has shared with you and me. You can find the full list of podcasts, where you can get them, which platforms, where you can join discussions of the episodes. Okay. If you'd like to learn more about me or my work, or about finding magic generally, or if you'd like to find out how to learn structured intuition like Martin was talking about, to create a vision for your life and create your life as you've seen it in that vision and reach your true potential, much more than I can address in the podcast, that's on that website as well, vincentgmailing.com. And finally, there's a button for you to get the book, Getting into the Flow. And if you're listening to this before February 2024, when it's going to be published, there'll be a special early bird offer there. And as I said, there's a button for you to engage with me through the coaching and the trainings I run. So thanks to all of you. Thanks to Martin for joining me. Thanks to the local birds, the golf course, and the builders next door for the sound effects. And I'll catch you in the next episode.